Everybody, my name's Liz Kohler and I'm here with Mohanbir Sawhney to tell you a little bit more about the digital marketing strategy course, data analytics, automation, and AI. Thank you all for joining us. You're going to learn a little bit more about this course and what it's all about. I am one of the program leaders, and there are 4 of us helping Mohan, supporting him and all of you and the course. So today we're going to kind of run through what the course covers, who it's for, what you can expect, and so on. But to get started, why don't you, enter in the chat where you're from, what industry you might be in, or kind of what your role is at your company. So first we're going to run through the slides. Here we go. And let's see, start. Here we go. I hope everybody can see. This is the course. And first of all, I'd like to introduce Mohanbir Sawhney. He is the McCormick Foundation Chair of Technology, the Clinical Professor of Marketing, Director of the Center for Research and Technology and Innovation at the Kellogg Graduate School of Management at Northwestern University. So I already told you, but you can submit a little bit more about yourself and what brought you here and where you're from. And what's so exciting about this course is usually it has people from all over the world, which makes it really fun and interactive, particularly when I'm reading the, kind of responses and the capstone, and I see the different industries and so forth. But, I don't know, most of you may know, but Kellogg has always been the #1 business school for marketing. And so, way back when I went, it was Philip Kotler and the 4 Ps, and they've always just maintained a really strong marketing presence. And Kellogg believes that marketing is more than a function or a discipline. Marketing is a mindset. It's a way of looking at the world that is customer-focused, insight-driven, and ever-evolving. And it really is for anybody in marketing. I get, people that are in advertising and every industry imaginable. All sorts, I get people who are company owners, and then people who are leading teams of marketing professionals. So it's for innovation-focused leaders, it's for customer and product specialists, seasoned marketers, and people with, not too much marketing experience, those with, just want to know more about it. So, Mohan is, very famous for, his work at Northwestern, but he's also a global speaker, consultant, and talks about innovation and modern marketing for companies working with Microsoft and Facebook, Sony, and the list goes on and on. And what's really interesting to me in this course is that he'll bring in examples of what he's done at some of these companies. He's also published 7 books, most recent, The Sentient Enterprise, which is a Wall Street Journal bestseller. And then here's a little bit about how the course works. Basically, he has pre-recorded different modules, and they're each 5 to 10 minutes long, so you can take it at your own pace and whatever works for you. But you'll have about roughly 4 to 6 hours of work each week, and there are interactive cases and quizzes just to make sure that you understand the material. It's not, super challenging, and you're not going to get an A, B, or C, whatever. You're just going to make sure that you understand the content. And then you'll have assignments with case studies and so forth. And then, there are, I think, 4 people like me who are program leaders with different backgrounds. I have background in consumer products and real estate and the hospitality industry. Others have more of a tech background. So we, talk about how to help you implement the material into your own company. You can ask us questions if you're not understanding the content entirely. And, if you're having technical difficulties, you can ask us that as well. So we're here to support you. And we have, we also, the program leaders will have office hours so that you can ask us questions online, and that's live. And then Mohan also has live webinars so that you can ask him questions as well, and how to implement it, or on the content material if you're not understanding it fully. At the end of the course, you will receive a certificate of completion. So if you want that to put on your LinkedIn profile or show your boss, that's great. And here are a few testimonials from previous students. I think Emeritus says this is one of their most highly rated courses, and we get great feedback, but we are always trying to improve. So we will ask you to give us feedback, but we get people from, obviously here, real estate industry, media, banking, healthcare, and people from all over the world. So it's really a great course. So, but I'll turn it over to Mohan, and let's let him tell you more about the rest of the course.
Thank you, Liz, and good morning, everybody. I'm coming to you from California. I'm in the Bay Area. Actually, currently, as Liz was saying, I work with a lot of companies, so I'm currently working, doing a workshop for the senior product leaders at Salesforce.com, and they were in the news yesterday because they just did the largest acquisition of Tableau for about $15 billion. So I've been working with the team here. So I want to welcome you to this course and to this webinar that introduces this course. So just a little bit of background on me. I have spent more than 25 years now teaching at Kellogg. And during that time, I've always been at the intersection of marketing and innovation and technology. And I've always been fascinated both by how technology industries work, but also about how marketing is being powered by technology. And I think that is really the theme behind what we are going to learn. And even though we call this course Digital Marketing Strategies, it's actually much broader than digital marketing. It's really about how marketing will be done in a digital world. So it's today marketing is becoming a discipline that is powered by data and automation and analytics and artificial intelligence. So it's really evolving into a new modern view of marketing. Digital is just one of the aspects of how we communicate and engage with customers. So that's what I'd like to do now, is to give you a little bit of an overview of what the course looks like and how it will work. And also just a little sneak preview or a flavor of what you can learn in the different modules. And then I'll be happy to take your questions, because I think that is the most valuable aspect of this webinar or my interactions with you, that you can ask me questions live. Let's see. Liz, maybe you can, I don't know, maybe you can advance the slides. The slides are not advancing for me. Yeah, that's good, thank you. So let me give you an overview of the learning journey in this course. I always begin, but that believe that marketing excellence begins with customer understanding and customer insights. Because unless we really understand customers and their pain points and their passions and their needs and their wants and their desires, you can't really craft any marketing strategy. So we're going to begin our learning journey with customer understanding and customer insights. And here what we're going to do is really emphasize the idea of ethnography and really understanding customers from direct observation. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we use AI and social data to gain insights in new ways. Having understood customers, our next module is really going to be that not all customers are the same. So I think one of the other fundamental tenets in marketing is understanding customer segmentation. So we'll then get into a discussion of response-based customer segmentation, how we really use data to drive segmentation, and how we do behavioral marketing, which is really kind of optimize our offerings for customers based on their behaviors and their intents and their preferences. Once you understand customers, you have to engage with them, and you have to engage with them by really understanding the journey that they are on, and map that customer journey, and then make sure that we are creating engaging content for them that will really kind of touch them with the relevant content at the relevant points in time. So we'll talk about how the entire content management process and how you manage how you match your content that you're creating for customers to through the intent or the stage in the journey that they're on. Next, modules we're going to talk about execution, and in execution we're going to focus on really how do you speed up marketing decision making? How do you make marketing decisions in a more agile way? Now, agile is a concept that has found wide applicability in the software industry for product development, but we're going to talk about how we adapt agile for marketing, and how do you actually scale agile marketing in a larger organization. And then the final phase, we're going to talk about how you optimize marketing. How do you optimize marketing by running experiments, by continuously testing and improving the performance of our marketing, and building marketing attribution models, which helps us understand what part of our marketing activity is working better, how do we maximize the ROI. And we'll conclude with a fascinating section on marketing automation and the application of artificial intelligence to marketing. So that's sort of the 5-step journey, customer insights, customer segmentation, customer engagement, marketing execution, and marketing optimization. What I'd like to do now is to give you a little bit of a deeper dive into each of these modules so that you get a better understanding of what topics we're going to cover in each stage. So maybe we can go to the next slide. So this is kind of our first module, so a little deeper dive into what we're going to do as we start off. I'm going to frame the discussion in the first module as a journey of marketing transformation. And here what we're going to talk about is how marketing is evolving and how it is changing, and what marketing in a digital world looks like. As I said, this is much broader than digital marketing. It's really about how do we do marketing in a world where customers are digitally connected. And just a moment, let me go back to the previous slide. So I don't know why it skipped to the, just give me a moment.
Okay.
Okay. It may be better if I share these slides directly from my.
Yeah, that's fine. Shall I stop sharing?
Yeah, I think you should stop sharing, Liz. And folks, just hang on for a second. I'm just going to use, okay, because there's too much of a lag here. Let's see.
Okay.
Just a moment.
And I encourage people to put questions in the, well, Mohan's doing that, in the Q&A, because we're here to answer your questions about what industry you're in, or if you have any questions on whether this course is appropriate for you, or what you're hoping to get out of the course. It really is a, I hadn't been in marketing for a while and went back and took a lot of digital marketing courses, and this is really a great overview from end to end. And I mean, it really covers a lot of great information. So we're here to answer your questions. So put them in the Q&A.
Okay. So I think I'm back. I'm going to share my slides from here. So as I was saying earlier, that we're going to look at the marketing transformation journey along 5 dimensions. And this really talks about the different facets of marketing transformation. The first thing we're going to talk about is how we engage differently with customers. And here our shift is going to be from sort of exposing customers to marketing communication to really getting them to engage with us by creating content that appeals to them, that engages them in their journey. Then we're going to talk about data and analytics and how there, traditionally, when we have looked at CRM or customer relationship management and customer data, we've really focused on customer transactions. We've really looked at sort of, purchase history. We've looked at sort of, what they've bought from point of sale data or from our e-commerce systems. But now there are fascinating new forms of data that are coming in. This is video data, it's text data, it's social conversations, it's, it's online, it's location data, it's sensor data. So we can really start to build a much richer view of customers, 360-degree customer profile that then we can use to create very personalized marketing communication as well as personalized products. So that's the second lane that we're going to talk about. Then in terms of process and execution, we're also going to talk about sort of how we accelerate marketing execution by moving from a traditional sequential marketing decision approach, which is sort of what we call waterfall marketing, to a much more sort of adaptable and responsive and approach that we've drawn from the software industry, which is agile marketing. How do you apply agile concepts to marketing, and how do you actually build agile teams that are cross-functional, that actually, how do you break down marketing initiatives into smaller initiatives that you can run on a 2 to 4 week cycle to greatly accelerate the decision making. Now, as we change what we do in marketing, our organization also needs to look different. So that's the fourth lane we're going to talk about, how we evolve from sort of a classic functional organization to much more of a customer-centric organization. How do you build new skill sets and new roles around marketing operations, around marketing analytics, and around content management. And finally, we'll talk about the technology that underpins customer engagement and how we need to evolve towards a unified system of engagement, which is one single platform for managing our customer engagement, from marketing to sales to customer care. And this is starting to now become an offering that you're starting to see from companies like Adobe and Microsoft and Salesforce, where they're creating an end-to-end system for customer engagement. So what are the technologies and tools that you'll use to manage engagement? So that's sort of the first module where we frame the discussion of mentions. The next module, we're going to talk about customer insights. And customer insights, I'm a big believer in the importance of direct customer observation, in ethnography and observation, as opposed to customer surveys and focus groups. Now, those are useful, but they are less useful. They're more useful for validating the insights that you might have or hypotheses that you might have, and they're less useful for generating hypotheses or generating insights. So for that, we need to really observe customers and natives around. So we'll talk about how that works, what is ethnography, and what is customer experience mapping, and how do we actually follow customers through the journey as they go through the experience, as well as human products or apps in stores. But then what we're going to talk about is how to overcome some of the limitations of the ethnography and observational work that we do. And the problem with ethnography is that it doesn't scale. It takes a lot of time. There's only a few customers you can speak with. It's also very expensive. So while the insights generated are very rich, but it's a really difficult and time-consuming and expensive process. And the data is very messy. Let's suppose you go out and do video interviews of customers, and you have 500 hours or 100 hours customer video data. Now, let's say you've done focus groups and you've got transcripts of focus groups, or you've got hundreds of hours of audio of focus groups. How do you begin to analyze that data? So this is where we're going to talk about two important developments. One is the availability of social data to scale ethnography, because now we can observe customer behavior that is occurring online. So we can actually mine the social conversations and use that to really do what we call virtual ethnography. So I'll talk about how what are the tools that you can use and what are the sorts of insights we can generate from social data mining. We'll also talk about some exciting new developments. This is what this picture that you see. The picture that you see on the left side of this slide is actually a smart glass that a shopper is wearing, and you're actually seeing real-time video from the eyes of the shopper, and you can ask them to do tasks, and you can ask them to actually, you can ask them questions. Then what is fascinating is asynchronously, after this interview has been conducted, you can take 100 such interviews and you can analyze the video data using So for instance, if you are the Koala Juice, that the gamer actually has looked at your brand, or every time they picked up your brand, or what are they saying about your brand. So the combination of machine vision as well as semantic analysis and natural language understanding allows you to get some very powerful insights in ways that you couldn't before. So we're actually going to talk about how we leverage AI for customer insights. So both sort of powerful traditional approaches, but also modern approaches for customer insight using social data and using AI. In the third module, as I was mentioning earlier, we're going to turn to the discussion of how customer segmentation can be done in a modern marketing world. And here I'm going to introduce the framework of response-based segmentation. So response-based segmentation really relies on customer data to do segmentation. We're not rely on some preconceived notions of demographic-based or, or industry-based or size-based or that is actually profiling information. That is not really behavioral information. So response-based segmentation relies on collecting data from customers related to their responses. And responses can be either preference data or it can be actually transaction data. We use this information then to construct clusters of customers and then to profile them. So this is data-driven segmentation, and we'll walk through a case study that will take you through these steps. And then what we're going to talk about is how this behavioral marketing, which is really the idea that you can do segmentation now continuously. So this is a fascinating idea that when we used to do segmentation in the traditional way, we would go out and do a survey and we would construct customer segments based on that survey research. But the problem is that this gets outdated, and also that the sample size is limited. What if you could do segmentation on a continuous basis by really analyzing the intents, the profiles, and the actions of customers, and by adding automation and analytics to this behavioral data, you can actually do segmentation for segments of one and in real time. So this is where we are evolving. This is kind of the idea of automated behavioral marketing. So we're going to explore how that works and how you need three elements: a content engine, which has dynamic content that's modular, that's tagged for different stages in the customer journey. And then you need a marketing automation platform. And on top of that, you need analytics to match the content to the customer journey. So it's a fascinating new way of thinking about customer segmentation in the modern world. Next, we're going to talk about how we really understand the customer journey and the customer experience. And here, this is a very, very important construct, because the whole idea in marketing is that we want to facilitate customers through their decision journey. We want to move them from sort of their unaware to aware to interested to sort of, to the purchase decision, and then following the purchase decision, consumption and advocacy. So how does that customer journey look like? What are the different steps and stages that they go through? How do you build a customer journey map? And then how do you use that customer journey map to innovate at every stage in the customer experience? The example here I have is how T-Mobile has really innovated in different ways across the customer experience. Then we'll talk about how, once we've understood the customer journey, once we map the customer experience, how do we then map content to the customer journey? And this is the idea that we call sort of mapping content to intent. And then using that understanding of the customer journey to find opportunities for improving the customer experience. I'll conclude this module by talking about how companies can create a content hub to organize all their content, to create a content repository, and how do you actually build a content calendar and a team that creates this content and make sure that it is managing all of the social media properties and the different ways in which content will be distributed. So this module really focuses on understanding the customer journey and creating the appropriate content to engage with them at each stage in the journey. In the fifth module, we're going to actually talk about how we tell stories and how do we do effective brand storytelling. Now, really, if you think about brands, great brands are great storytellers. And I think that when you think about a brand like Disney or a brand like Tesla or a brand like BMW or Harley Davidson, these are all brands. Nike, they tell powerful stories. We have a lot of rich associations in our minds related to these brands. But what we can do is actually associate our brand positioning with some core stories and archetypes that people really resonate with. There are some story archetypes that resonate, that we see across cultures, across language, and across time. So the powerful idea here is that stories are sort of omnipresent. Stories are universal. Stories actually cut across time. And there are only a few types of stories that are told. There's actually a fascinating book called The Seven Basic Plots, which argues that there are only 7 basic stories. For example, the hero's quest, or overcoming the monster. These are story archetypes. And once we can associate our brand with a story archetype, it gets a very visceral reaction. Customers respond to stories emotionally. They don't respond to stories cognitively. You know what? We feel before we think. So that is what we'll talk about. What is why storytelling is so important. In fact, at Microsoft, I teach a whole course on brand storytelling. We spend, and it's because corporate storytelling is becoming a core skill at many large companies today. So we'll talk about where story ideas come from, what a structure of the story looks like. There's a method that we call, or a framework that we call the Freytag pyramid. We're going to talk about how stories are structured. Where do you go find stories from in your company? What are the best practices in telling great stories? How do you use customers in storytelling? How do you engage them? How do you tell participative story? We'll do some fascinating case studies. This is a very video-rich module, as you can imagine. So what I have here is the example of Google's fascinating storytelling campaign in India called The Reunion, how they sort of, created this sort of real rich emotional association with the fact that Google actually brings people together, not just a technology company. But the most exciting part of this module is I'm going to talk about how storytelling can be done in a very innovative way in the digital world by using a concept that we call transmedia storytelling. Transmedia storytelling comes from the entertainment industry, and this is the idea that we don't just take the same content and repurpose it in different channels. This is what we see today. You create a YouTube video, and then you write a blog post on the same idea, and then, and so on. So it's not, transmedia is a very different approach. Transmedia says, how do you create a coordinated story experience where each channel is used in a very purposive way, it's used in a very specific way, and they add up to create an integrated and coordinated story experience. So transmedia story experiences are worlds, they are story worlds, where you create an incentive for customers to progressively engage more deeply with you, and you use the channels, different media channels, in a very specialized and a coordinated way. So I'll take you through some examples of transmedia storytelling and some case studies, because this is a very new idea. It's been adapted from the entertainment industry. So this module is all about the creative parts of marketing and how do you actually, use customer insights to tell powerful brand stories. Next, we're going to get into the process of marketing. So in this module, we're going to talk about how you accelerate marketing execution. How do you make marketing decisions faster? In the old days, we used to do annual marketing campaigns, and we would do quarterly reviews of the marketing campaigns, and we would sort of, take a very sequential approach to doing the insight work, to designing a campaign, to testing it out and executing it, and then monitoring the results. We don't have time for that nowadays. Customers are moving too fast, and we need to move faster. So we'll talk about how we can use the principles of agile development and apply that to the marketing context. So this is something I'll call agile for marketing. We'll look at the best practices of agile, but then we'll look at how marketing execution, you can apply this outside-in approach, the user stories approach, the chunking down the work into smaller segments, smaller marketing initiatives, and then iterating very rapidly by running lean experiments. So this is so at the end of this module, you get a great understanding of how companies as large as Cisco are really accelerating their marketing execution by actually creating sort of an agile approach to marketing. So I'll walk you through some examples of what best practice companies are doing in this context. So this is all about marketing execution and process. Next, we'll talk about marketing attribution, testing, and marketing experimentation. So now we're getting into the optimization of marketing. So in the optimization of marketing, we'll talk about what marketing attribution is, which means that you might be doing a number of marketing activities. You might have paid search, you might have print advertising, you might have organic, you might have within that paid search, you might have multiple channels, you might have YouTube. How do I know what's working? How do I know what's my ROI across these channels? So that requires something called marketing attribution, which is being able to attribute the effects that I'm seeing, the outcome that I'm seeing to the different marketing actions that I'm taking. So how do you build a multi-touch attribution model? Because you'll have multiple activities in each stage in your marketing activities. So I'm figuring out which marketing action is working, which is not. What are the different marketing multi-touch attribution models? And what are the marketing mix modeling approaches that we can look at? We'll also talk about marketing experimentation. How do you do A/B testing? And how do you systematically run marketing experiments? So this is sort of, now we're getting a little bit into the data science and the marketing attribution, which we will then sort of amplify in our final module, where we start talking about the automation of marketing and the application of artificial intelligence to marketing. So we'll talk about how marketing automation platforms can be used to actually create a automated marketing, end-to-end marketing approach. And so these are platforms like Marketo, which is now owned by Adobe, or Pardot, which is owned by Salesforce.com, or Eloqua, which is owned by Oracle. You see a pattern here that these marketing automation companies have been acquired by the larger software companies, because it's such an important field. Then I'll take you through sort of the application of artificial intelligence to marketing, and we'll walk through the customer journey. And at each stage, I'll talk about how AI is being used for customer insights, how AI is being used to optimize customer conversion and customer reach and segmentation, how AI is being used to sort of to improve customer retention and reduce customer churn. So what we're going to look at is applications of AI at each stage in this customer journey. So you'll have a good understanding of what are some of the latest developments in AI. And one other thing I'll say as we go through these modules is that we'll be giving you exercises that will ask you to apply these ideas in a cumulative way to an initiative that you want to work on in your company, so that you'll be able to put the ideas into action in a systematic way. Now, as we go through this, the course, the example that we will use come from a wide variety of industries, because, and this is all based on personal experience that I have working with many of these companies, whether they are pharmaceutical companies or technology companies or telecom companies or insurance companies or consumer packaged goods companies. So those of you who might have a concern or a question, is this applicable to my industry? Rest assured that we're going to talk about a wide variety of industries, and also in the webinars, I encourage you to ask questions related to your business or your industries. So the course really talks about marketing across a wide variety of contexts, also B2B, B2C, business to business, business to consumer. So we'll talk about a wide spectrum. So at this point, I'm going to actually stop here and open it up to questions. Liz, we're going to, I'm sure people have some questions.
Yes, they do. So, okay, we have several. And first of all, there are people on here from all over the world in many, many different industries. So welcome everybody, and feel free to ask more questions. But the first question they have is, and I may not say this name quite right, but Gajanan is asking, are we going to use any tools during the course, like gathering insights or social listening tools?
Yeah, Gajanan, that's a good question. So I just want to sort of set expectations here. This course is a strategic marketing course. So, it would not be appropriate for me to, for instance, take you through a HubSpot or, how do you actually execute on Google Analytics, or how do you do social listening using Radian6? That I think is too tactical. So we're going to talk about the frameworks and strategies that then I will obviously point you to sort of, here are some of the tools that you can think about, but we're going to actually lead out to saying these are the possible tools you could look at, but I wouldn't want to, we're not going to be actually doing a Google Analytics campaign, although we will have one exercise where we're going to do a little bit of a quick exercise around designing and executing a marketing campaign. With that said, the program leaders will be happy to guide you through the specifics of the execution. In fact, in one of the office hours that I saw in the previous cohort, actually one of the program leaders very patiently walked one of the students through their own Google Analytics dashboard to show them how these tools could be used. So, and the reason I don't do this, use the the specific software tools is, first of all, there are many options, and I don't want to sort of push a particular option versus another. But the other thing is that the purpose of this course is really to give you a better understanding of the principles, the frameworks, and the concepts and the strategies, and then the tools become sort of the tactical execution that follows.
Yeah, I often send articles on, top recommended tools for small businesses or something like that if somebody asks me. Yeah.
So if you do have questions around the specifics of the tool, please ask us in the webinar, the Ask the Program Leaders. But in the exercises, we will, other than that one exercise on marketing campaign design, we're going to stay at the level of strategy.
Yes. Okay, we have another question. My company is a startup. This is from Juan. Is a startup, and I'm concerned the content will be too enterprise driven.
Not really. I think that rest assured that I do a lot of work with startup companies, and we'll be talking about a lot of startup examples. I think that let me make this following distinction: that the principles that we're going to talk about, the idea that you need to think about customer journeys, the need to think about customer insights, the need to think about how you map customer experiences, and how you run marketing experiments. I think those are completely universal. It doesn't matter, what size of company you are and so on. What does make matter and how it does make a difference is that there are certain, let's take marketing experimentation, for instance. If you have, if you're a big company and you have a large budget, you probably have a scaled platform that you have in-house that you can use to run marketing experiments, and you run your marketing experiments at a much larger scale. But you can do quick and dirty experimentation if you're a small company. You can use a guerrilla approach to marketing experimentation. The same thing with customer insights, right? If I may have a social data analytics platform if I'm a bigger company, but if I'm a startup company, at least what you can do is to monitor forums and to participate in forums, to do direct customer observations online. So I think that the difference will be in how you execute. The difference will be in terms of the level of precision and the level of investment that you can make, but the principles themselves are not going to be different. So I don't think you should worry that these are not ideas, that these are only sort of rich people's marketing. I'm a big believer. In fact, one of the articles I will be happy to share with any of you who are interested in the course is an article I just wrote and a presentation I just made. It's called $0 marketing. So $0 marketing, I'll show you how to do marketing with absolutely zero budget. So don't worry about money. It's really about imaginativeness, being creative and thinking like a hacker. This is a concept that we call growth hacking and marketing. So with that said, of course, some of the case studies will focus on larger companies, but I don't think you should be concerned.
And several people are wondering, they just got their MBA and wondered if this course is applicable for somebody so young, and then other people, for somebody who's been out of this for a while and is getting back in. Is it appropriate for both?
That's a wonderful question. And we face this, we have a very diverse audience in terms of people who have 15, 20 years of experience and are very senior, mid-career executives, all the way to younger folks. So let me sort of respond to this question on sort of these two fronts. Now, clearly, if you've been out in the field for a while, if you did go to business school, did do marketing, but you did it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the world looked very different in those days. And Liz was just explaining. Liz is actually an alum of our program at Kellogg, right? But a long time ago. A long time ago. And in marketing, I would say what is interesting is, what's fascinating is that the fundamentals have not changed. Right, the fundamentals of sort of being customer-centric, driving marketing through customer insights, building compelling, powerful value propositions, creating great customer experiences. None of that has changed. What has changed is the channels and the tools that we have at our disposal, right? So if you're out for a while, you're not familiar with the newer tools, the newer skills, like artificial intelligence in marketing didn't exist 5 years ago, but now things have changed very quickly. So for those people, there's a lot sort of that you can do to update. Now, if you recently went through an MBA program, obviously your information is more up to date. But what I would like to sort of perhaps offer is that we will be bringing Kellogg's perspective. We'll be bringing my perspective perspective, and we believe that we are, at the cutting edge. We believe that we are closer to sort of what is the best practice and the latest developments in marketing. And in fact, I saw in some of the questions that people, or the responses people posted when they signed on to the webinar, where they said, I do have an MBA, but I still think that this is going to be helpful, and I totally agree. Because I think that we really bring a unique point of view, and we bring a differentiated perspective. So even if you took your MBA a year ago or 2 years ago, we think that you have some valuable things to learn. Obviously, for the people who've been out longer and are looking to reskill themselves, everything or most of it is going to be new. Less of it will be new if you're a recent MBA, but I still think there's value added. Because the value here is not, just to be clear, the value here is not just learning the concepts. It's learning the concepts with us. It's sort of our personal engagement, our expertise, and what's not on the slides is more important than what's on the slides, right? So that's really the idea. So we think that we have some value to add to both audiences.
Okay, so Geet is asking, hi, I run a design and advertising agency in India. We have an expertise in designing and branding, but I want to integrate that in marketing. I want to know whether this course will help me do that.
Absolutely, because if you remember, we just talked about, by the way, one of the sort of interesting observations now is that what is the role of an agency? What's the role of a marketing agency in the modern marketing world? Agencies are being threatened because customers or brands are taking control of their content. They want to control their content. They want to sort of be, so what used to be creative strategies now evolving into content strategies, and brands are, and then they're also expecting their agencies to be much more agile. They're expecting their agencies to use marketing experimentation, to use marketing automation, to sort of help them do powerful storytelling in digital channels. So I think as an agency, your clients' expectations are increasing. They want you to lose. If you're in India, some of you might know that I'm on the board of Reliance Jio, and if you're in India, you know that they have completely disrupted the wireless and telecommunications industry, and I've been a part of that revolution for the past 4 years. So what has happened in India now is everybody has this, right? Everybody has access not to a 4G phone, whether it's a smartphone or a feature phone, and suddenly the power of digital channels has gotten amplified. So now you need to figure out how do you create a mobile-first content strategy, how do you create a mobile-first marketing strategy. So I think that as an agency, you really need to upskill yourself because your clients' expectations are being enhanced and are. So this would be, I think, pretty valuable for you.
Yeah. And Rodrigo would like to know what kinds of marketing campaigns you have worked on.
I worked on marketing campaigns of all sorts. Some of the really big ones, for instance, Xbox 360, Microsoft Office. At Microsoft, I worked on AT&T and their sort of marketing of their what they call Digital Life, which was their home automation solution. I worked with a whole slew of small startup companies in bringing their products to market. I actually worked on the marketing campaign for this course. I worked on a marketing campaign for my books. So literally we do marketing, day in and day out. So so I've been advising companies in a wide variety of industries on marketing and customer engagement, pharmaceutical companies, AbbVie, and so on and so forth. So I've been around the block a few times. I've, I think over the years, probably advised, half of the 50 Fortune 100 companies on marketing related issues.
Yeah. Okay. Wakanda is wondering, during the course, will there be a chance for them to see or discuss the case study from other students?
I believe so, and this is something you guys can address.
Yeah.
Some peer assessment and evaluation and so on.
Yes, some of the assignments are peer reviewed, And so you'll learn from other students and they'll give you feedback. And then usually the program leaders or Mohan kind of goes into a little bit of what you might have done on some of the assignments as well. So yes. And then another person was wondering what time your webinars are, because they're on the West Coast, and they want to make sure they'll be able to attend.
Yeah, the webinars are at, we generally do them at 9 a.m. Central, so it'll be 7 a.m. Pacific on the West Coast, and 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. your time. But one other thing that we do is all webinars are recorded. So at the very least, even if you have a travel commitment or a work commitment, or it is at a time that is not convenient for you, you can always view the webinar afterwards. And one other thing that I would strongly encourage you to do, so let's say that you find that you can't attend a particular webinar, or you really have a question that you want me to answer, we will invite your questions in advance. So you can actually send your questions in advance to Liz or some of the other program leaders. And even if you're not on the webinar, I will respond to your question. And then you can view the webinar later and see what I said about your question. So, so we will, so you can even attend in absentia and get your questions answered, even if you're not on the webinar. So we picked 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Central Chicago time, which is 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Pacific time, and it is mid-afternoon in Europe, and it is evening in Asia, as perhaps the best compromise for the live webinars. And it has seemed to have worked in the past. But to be specific about the West Coast, it'll probably be 7 a.m. your time.
Okay, and then we have several questions about different industries. Somebody's from the financial services, somebody else was in politics, somebody else is an entrepreneur, and does it apply to all those?
Yes. No, I don't want to be facetious here, because as Liz was mentioning, that my mentor and probably her mentor was Phil Kotler, who's 88 years old, and he's still active. He's still kind of an amazing guy, right? Still writes a book, 2 books a year. So one of the really pioneering contributions that Phil Kotler made to do marketing was that he wrote a fascinating article some 50 years ago. It's called Broadening the Concept of Marketing. And there he kind of was the first one to say, listen, marketing applies to ideas. Marketing applies to political organizations. Marketing applies to nonprofits. Marketing is a concept that is very broad in its applicability. And so don't just think about, consumer packaged goods. So I want to, I'm inspired by Phil. So it's the same thing I said, that marketing in a digital world, really applies to everybody. So it's really, it doesn't matter what product or service you have, what size of company you have, what industry you have. What is different, and we talked about one difference, right? That based on your budgets, the tools that might be available to you might be less comprehensive or more comprehensive. You may or may not have a marketing automation software platform. Similarly, let's look at B2B versus B2C. Let's look at a few dimensions here, since this is a very broad question. I'll look at 3 different slices of this: business to business versus business to consumer, B2B versus B2C. The second slice we'll look at is sort of big company versus small company, and the third slice we'll look at is industry. Right? I'm in insurance, I'm in retail, I'm in mining or construction, and so on. So here's what's different. Let's take B2B versus B2C. What's different in business to business versus business to consumer is that the engagement that you have with B2B customers is much deeper. The journey is more complex. It takes longer. Your sales cycle might be 6 months or 12 months for a complex purchase decision. As opposed to that, in a business to consumer world, it's going to be much more sort of, let's say your Kit Kat, it's a much more of a simple purchase decision, and a small, somebody was joking with me recently that you don't go on a customer journey to buy a Kit Kat, right? So you a customer journey to buy an automobile, or to buy, enterprise software. So in the B2B world, what you're trying to do really, what becomes really important is to nurture a customer lead or nurture customers through the journey through a complex set of content that you create for them. And the channels that you use to execute this will be more the business focused channels, LinkedIn, Quora, so these are, as well as webinars, blogs, infographics, white papers. These become more important. On the other hand, if you're a consumer company, what you do is sometimes you might do less direct response, because if your consumer package goods like Procter and Gamble, you're not really necessarily looking to drive sales. You're looking for brand outcomes. You're looking for people to feel better about your brand, connect with them at a brand level. So there, what you're going to do is to create content that's more visual, that's more, so you're going to use YouTube, you're going to use Facebook, you're going to use sort of, Pinterest. If you're a visual, let's say you're a food company like General Mills, you're going to use Pinterest for recipes. Or Instagram to sort of post, videos, so short videos or pictures of your products in action. So I guess what I'm saying is that the tactics that you use, the channels that you use, how you spend your money, and how you specifically engage with customers, that will be different based on the industry, based on the size of the company, based on the type of the customer. But the principles behind the marketing activities that you do, the principle of engagement, the principle of matching content to intent, the principle of customer journey, management, all those are fairly universal. So I know that this is one of the most important questions that you all have. Is this for me? Is this for my company? Is this for my industry? While I will not be able to cover every industry and every size of company or every context in my examples, in my discussions, and my lectures, but please rest assured that these principles are very universal. So I have no bias of B2B versus B2C or big company versus small company. It works across. But then I think what is really important for you is to be able to translate these ideas and translate the principles back into the context of your company and your industry. And that does require a little bit. So it's not copy and paste, it's copy, translate, and paste. So translate it to your context. So there is some bit of sort of that you'll have to do the adjustment or adaptation, saying, oh, this works better for me than this particular tactic. But the principles, I think the frameworks are quite universal.
Okay, and Alicia is wondering, will there be guest lecturers or will we get the benefit of Mohan for all the sessions?
I think she's biased here. She wants me for all the sessions. The answer is we will do what works best for you. In general, I will be there for all, I will be there, of course, for all the webinars, and most of the time I will be on the webinar. Sometimes we bring in a guest for maybe 15 minutes to amplify a specific theme or specific topic. But based on feedback, I think that we're learning that people want, that you signed up for the course and you want to interact with the faculty or interact with me. I am at your service for all the webinars, 100% of the time. So please rest assured that I will be there.
Good. Okay. And then somebody asked, is agile marketing a tool for large organizations? Could you explain if or how it relates to small businesses looking to scale?
Yes, agile is being used in large organizations, and I will actually take you through specific frameworks for how you scale agile. There's a model called the Spotify model, which allows you to scale agile across larger teams by using concepts that they call tribes and chapters and gears. So we'll discuss that. We'll also talk about how agile is being used in big companies. So today, organizations as large as Microsoft, organizations as large as Caterpillar are actually using agile. And Cisco, if you remember, I had a slide on Cisco in the earlier when I was introducing the agile module. Cisco is using agile across the board in marketing. I was actually working with them 2 weeks ago, their marketing team, and they are starting to implement agile. What you do find, though, I will say that in a larger organization, not everything that you do in marketing can be converted into an agile mode. So you will start with your digital marketing initiative, because one of the principles in agile is you need rapid feedback from customers. You need to be able to have a quick iteration loop, and that's harder to do for your legacy marketing tactics, such as you're running a trade show or an event. But it's much easier to do for your mobile channel, for your digital channels. So I'll talk about how you actually blend agile and waterfall and gradually move by first working with your digital marketing activities and then gradually moving to all of your marketing activities. So it's a phased process. It's not something you can do overnight, and it's not necessarily something you can apply across the board. It has to be done selectively to areas where Agile is more applicable and easier to do.
Okay, and then I'm going to answer this final question. There are a lot of questions on, you know, how long are the webinars, when they are, if you're going to be able to attend them, and so on. So, okay, there's a difference between the modules, which are pre-recorded, and you can do it anytime, you know, you want. You do it at your own pace. And each of those, again, is, you know, roughly 5 to 10 minutes long. And so you take those at your own leisure. And then there are webinars, and there are, what, Mohan, 4 webinars, I believe, for each run of the course. And those are done live, but will be recorded so that you can, you know, watch those at your leisure. So, and somebody asked, you know, the course starts on the 27th. Is there anything they need to be on the 27th? So again, everything is recorded. So really you can do it anytime you want. And the time commitment is really, I would say, to get the most out of the course, it's less than an hour a day. So somewhere around 5 hours a week is pretty much sufficient, in my opinion. Don't you think, Mohan?
Yeah, I think so. I think that 5 hours, 4 to 6 hours a week is sort of the effort. But what we will also do, by the way, for those of you who want to go deeper, there'll be optional resources and additional resources that we will point you to. But I think a 4 to 6 hour a week is a commitment that you should think about. But of course, this is on demand, which means that you can choose the time. Other than the live webinar, you don't have to be present in a very specific time, so you can do it whenever you have time during the week.
Right.
And your program leaders will,
you can ask your own questions.
yeah. And your program leaders will work closely with you to make sure that you're progressing on the assignments in case, you know, you're falling behind. What can you do to? Because we're very proud of the fact that, you know, and I was just looking at the numbers, our last cohort is 87% of our participants completed the course on the requirements for the certification. So we're very proud of the fact that, you know, that the engagement level is high and that people actually do complete the course. By the way, this compares with about, you know, 6 to 8% of in a classic MOOC if you went to Coursera or something like that. So this is a high-touch experience. It's an experience where your program leaders and myself will try to really make sure that you are getting the most out of this, that it's not just watching videos, and it's much richer than a classic MOOC experience. So I really look forward to welcoming all of you. I want to make sure all of you sign up, and I hope this is giving you a flavor for the kind of learning experience and the engagement that you can expect. So thank you so much for signing in today, and I look forward to seeing you in the course.